Hello everyone, and welcome again to another Ableton Live tutorial. My name is Michael and I go by the name Radio Moon. And today we're going to be talking about the most used shortcuts, keyboard shortcuts that I use when I'm working on a session that I think you should know about. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Alright, so we're talking about keyboard shortcuts today. And if you're new to the program or if you are been using it for years, because depending on the version, things might change, I highly recommend just kind of going through the menu and checking out like kind of all the features that you might not be aware of. Like when I was researching doing what to cover in this video, I discovered that you can actually name clips by emojis by going, when you have a rename function, which I'll be talking about a little bit later. But if you're going to rename a clip, you can actually name it as emojis and symbols, which is pretty awesome. Never knew that. So, like I said, highly recommend just going through the program and just taking a look at all the features. But today we're going to be covering some of the most essential ones that I think you should know and that I use most often when working in a session. So right now I have this kind of old sketch pulled up. And so, you might, whether you're using a Windows or a Mac, you might be already familiar with like, copy and paste and duplicating. All those things still work inside Ableton, but we're going to take a look at some of those, maybe ones that you aren't so aware of. But the main thing with shortcuts and the reason why you want to use them is to just speed up your workflow process and just make sure that when you have an idea, you can get it out as fast as possible. So again, it just takes knowledge and also practice. So the first ones I really want to talk about that I use all the time is Command T, or would be Control T on Windows, or Command Shift T, which is creating new tracks. So we have Command T will create a new audio track, and then Command Shift T will create a new MIDI track. There is one more bonus, not used as often. I really enjoy using them, but that would be Option Command T, or I think it would be like Alt Control T on a Windows. I'm sorry, I don't really use Ableton in Windows, but so Option Command T will create a new return track, and then you can put effects sends on that, and we can go over that send tracks in a different video. But so one more time to go over that, it'd be new audio track, Command T, new MIDI track, Command Shift T. So that's very handy when it's just like, if I'm working with a vocalist and they just want to be like, let's record a new track or something like that. A lot of times I can hit duplicate too, like I was mentioning before. So Command D will just duplicate an audio track, and if I had a bunch of presets on there, it would just duplicate them all. But those are the main like new track shortcuts that make everything super fast and simple when you're just kind of building your ideas. All right, so we're going to be moving on now, and the next ones I want to talk about are kind of involve clip editing. So if we kind of just look at this top channel here, we have this MIDI track and it has this synthesizer preset. There's a lot of MIDI notes. I think I was just jamming one day and just made this. But, say when you're just kind of coming up with like raw ideas and you just kind of like spitting out a bunch of information on your keyboard or whatever, and then you want to like go back and like refine that. There are a couple quick shortcuts to kind of easily manipulate these MIDI clips. So let's say like I have this soloed and I just like want to take apart, or I want to cut these in half. The first shortcut is Command E. So wherever you select in the clip and hit Command E, it's going to split that clip at that point. So before it was this whole thing, and then if I click here and hit Command E, now it's in two different sections. Another nice shortcut to this, it's not really a keyboard shortcut, but it's also like just a really handy way to make little splits and clips is by making a selection and grabbing this top bar of the clip and then just clicking and dragging down, and that kind of just makes its own cutout. But all right, moving on. So we're gonna look inside these things for further editing. So say we split this clip and we like it, or we want to just so I'm using Command Z, which you should be all familiar with. Say I want this to duplicate, but you can notice that the selection that made when I split it is still, all that information from the entire clip, the original clip, is still in there. But I just want it now to be its own little clip. So I don't want all that other information. So the next shortcut is consolidating, and that is done by hitting Command J. So if you notice now, I'm going to go back and do it one more time. If you look right here, this is where it was in relation to the original clip. And now, after I consolidate, that puts it at the beginning, and then there's no more information inside the clip unless it falls up inside it. Anyway, so that's a way to just kind of like extract ideas, make them their own thing, and now you can like further editing them without worrying about damaging the original. All right, and also I will explain this concept. I kind of used it in a subtractive way, but it's also very useful. Let's say I have right here this like shaker pattern at the bottom here. So consolidating can also work as like an additive and constructive thing. So like say you take a bunch of audio clips and you made all these edits and you arranged them into this pattern, and you, instead of having them be all these little clips, you want them to be one clip. So if you make a selection over one track of audio edits that you made and you hit Command J, it consolidates them now into one audio track. That if you go and look, you can show this in your browser. So inside the project, there is a folder for samples, processed, and then consolidated, and now it is just one file. So you can do that with, a whole bunch of audio clips, and just kind of like piece things together after you made them and edit, so you don't have to worry about them shifting around anymore. They're going to be locked in time into one clip. So that's great. All right, moving on, back to where we were at this clip. I'm gonna just change this color so it's easy to remember. The next most used thing that when working with MIDI clips for a shortcut is quantizing. So if we select all of our notes and then just hit Command U, that's gonna lock all these MIDI notes to the grid. So before they were a little off time, I was just kind of playing really free form. So if we just hit Command U, that will lock them to the current grid. I'm going to also share with you a nice little shortcut to manipulating the grid, because the quantizing is going to happen if you go into your menu and you go to quantize settings. You can change this grid either to current or to a different interval. So quarter notes, eighths notes, 16th notes, whatever. But if you have it established at current grid, you can change your grid settings by hitting Command 1 and 2 to adjust the resolution of the grid. So now if I were to go back and hit Command U, it's going to lock to this grid as opposed to the other one. So just be careful and be mindful of what you want to quantize to, or how refined you want to be quantized. So again, to change the grid, Command 1 or Control 1 on Windows, and 2 will adjust the grid for you to be smaller or larger. All right. So we've gone through quantizing, and then the next thing I want to just discuss is clip activation and deactivation. So This is very useful and something that I would highly recommend getting accustomed to working with. And it's a nice way that you can kind of silence clips without deleting them or muting a track. It's just like, say you want to test things out to see what things sound like if things are not there without deleting them. So let's listen to a section of this. We only got this solo. Let's just say I want to create like a break in here and just see what it sounds like to have like some of these drum hits removed at the end of this section. So if I select over a portion of these clips, and all I have to do is hit the 0 key, and that turns them into kind of like a ghost clip where they're still there, but they're not activated, and so they won't play. So then when we go over them and listen to them, it's if they're just muted. And so it's a nice way to for you to kind of just preview things to see what things would sound like if they're not there without having to just delete them. Yeah, just makes kind of the A/B process of listening to things much quicker. And so, all right, moving on. The last one that I want to talk about, and I think this is like such a brilliant idea, it saves so much time, is duplicating time in Ableton. So of course you may have be like familiar that I can like take a selection and just duplicate this over and over. But what if I wanted to duplicate an entire section? Well, you can do this big selection and do the same thing and hit Command D, and it will duplicate that entire thing. But there's actually another way by just adding one more button that's going to allow you to do that and be more confident that you've gotten everything. And especially when you have a big project and you have like 40, 50 tracks or whatever, and you want to make sure that everything in that section is getting duplicated, all you have to do is make a selection of time and then hit Shift Command D, and that's going to duplicate that entire segment for you. So I didn't have to make a big selection of everything and made sure everything was in there to duplicate that whole section. All I had to do was hit Shift Command D after making my selection, and it duplicated everything within that time on all my tracks. So it's very handy, especially when you're just starting off and you're just kind of like, you have idea A already established and it's like, all right, I want to make idea B or a new version of this. All you have to do, make a selection, Shift Command D, and it duplicates it just following that clip or that section, and then you can just go and make those further edits from there. Another one that's kind of related to this, that's also very useful, is Command I, is insert time. So if, say you wanted to insert some silence or you wanted a new section, but you didn't want to like have to select all this and drag it over, you can make your selection and hit Command I, and that's going to create a blank section where you selected and move everything that was in that selection and beyond it further down the timeline, so that you have this new space. All right, I think that's all the shortcuts I wanted to cover for now. I know there's so many more, and like I said at the beginning of the video, I would highly recommend just going through the menus and just checking out all the different features that the program offers, and you can come up with your own kind of shortcuts and tricks that help you with your production workflow and just help you get those ideas out faster. All right, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. And if you like this video or learned something, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Subscribe to my channel for more Ableton Live tutorials. So that's it. Take care, and thanks for watching.